The mid-season patches has some insane changes for supports, and with nerfs to half of them and even a small rework to Zenyatta, there are some crazy changes to account for. Nerfing supports doesn't just make all of them worse, but means that more heroes that were held back by how strong some of them were are more viable. And even some of the other changes in this patch, like D.Va's buff, has a big effect on how good certain supports are. Let's get right into the list. Starting at D tier this time, since most supports are closer together despite being collectively worse, Mercy is still at the bottom, but she's not so horrendously bad that she's all the way down. Mercy is best for pocketing a high damage DPS, but right now a lot of them are doing just fine on their own. The only hero who really needs it to be good is Pharah, who takes way more damage than the rest, and regularly at that. And she's obviously not doing too hot right now. Mercy still has a place in some sniper mirrors where she can resurrect a pick for free, which is pretty invaluable sometimes, but most of the time Mercy just can't keep up with the strongest comps right now that play way faster than she can handle. And not only is Sombra still an option to one-shot Mercy, but with D.Va's buff, even a D.Va dive would melt her. Mercy can't help herself survive a dive, and she can't help her tank survive massive brawl pressure from heroes like Ryan, Mei, Bastion, and Symmetra. And now that Zenyatta's got a boost, there's another hero that's better in the spam comp than Mercy, that can lay down more damage and focus fire. Higher level spam compositions benefit a lot from having self-sustainable heroes like Iliadi and Sigma who can hold angles on their own, but Mercy always has to stick with someone to get value, meaning there's a limit on how many angles you can take. There are way better options than Mercy, but she's still a solid hero, and by no means bad in every situation. One step up to C tier goes to Moira, who's still a good pick, but despite so many other supports being nerfed, she isn't an ideal pick for rush compositions. As for spam and dive, there are some things she can do to try to fit in, but she realistically doesn't help them out at all. And she still doesn't synergize well with really anyone. Even though there are usually better options for fast and hard pushing playstyle, she at least keeps up with the tempo at the start of the fight, but usually falls off after. Her healing output is good, but in a meta with so many high sustained heroes, her damage doesn't do enough. And if you're not playing Moira in a full stacked 5-member squad, it's going to be difficult to get the ball rolling. Moira is still not in a place where she can get better just by the other supports being nerfed, but because her healing potential and self-sustain are undeniably really strong at their best, she could very well become a must-pick with the wrong changes. Moving up to B tier, Zenyatta's new changes have made him pretty weird, but all in all, he's a little better. His Harmony Orb buff, health buff, and Discord range buff are all great, but the change to how his Discord works makes him a lot less flexible during the mid-fight. He's a hero that can switch targets on the fly, but now he's punished more for doing that, unable to place it on the same target twice in a row after it's been removed, either manually or through breaking line of sight. It definitely doesn't feel good to use, and he's still really hard to play outside of sniper comps on maps like Circuit Royale where he can do whatever he wants without fear of being dived. It's a weird change, since it improves some aspects of his playstyle, like his dueling capabilities with his health increase and his dive support with his Harmony Orb buff, but his Discord has been made way clunkier in exchange. Zenyatta can do a lot of things, but his Discord Orb really ties things together, and if the nerf was a 3-second or even 4-second delay before you can reapply the Discord on the same target, it would be effective at helping tanks not be hard focused, but still allow the Zen to move his Discord around. 7 seconds is a long time to not be able to Discord someone, especially if it is a really aggressive hero you want to focus. Taking your time and being careful with your abilities is good, but for an ability like Discord, it doesn't fit in very well. He's definitely improved slightly, but still low on the list. Next in B tier is Life Weaver, who is another hero affected by the new support changes. His nerfs are pretty hefty, targeting his heal output and life grip cooldown, but he's good enough that he can still do his job, pumping out a lot of widespread heals and saving his teammates from danger and ultimate engages. Although his utility is unique, it's just not strong enough. Although his Plateau platform is intended to reposition yourself and your team, Symmetra's teleporter is better suited for quick repositioning that's also available often. He's gotten better because his heal output has been amped to the max, but he still doesn't have a very good reason to play him above other supports, at least in an aggressive playstyle. He's a good character for keeping your team alive, but not for helping them push, which is insanely important for Overwatch 2. Even in spam comps, just sitting back and healing won't help very much, and aggressive utility is almost necessary rather than optional. Regardless, he's great at keeping himself and his team alive, and his ultimate is still incredibly strong, so he sticks in B tier firmly despite receiving 3 nerfs. Finishing off B tier is the Fallen from Grace Iliadi, who's in the weakest state she's ever been. With nerfs to her damage and pylon, her main strengths, she's finally been knocked down from the top tier, and even if she might still seem broken, not only is her pylon's health barely anything now, 2-tapped by tanks like Sigma and Doomfist, and shredded by Tracer and Sombra, but her primary fire projectile size has been halved. You'll have to be way more accurate to hit your shots consistently. It definitely seems like a small thing, but Sojourn's initial railgun size was exactly the same as Iliadi's is now, and if you remember how bad Sojourn was at Overwatch 2's release, you can kinda see how it might affect Iliadi's effectiveness. She's still a strong hero, with her damage output and healing staying the same, but not only will you have to be more skilled with your aim to get the same amount of value you would have before, but your pylon is way less reliable and with a lower uptime, thanks to the cooldown increase when it gets broken. She'll definitely see less play, with only 100 HP on her pylon, but she remains strong in the hands of good players and is still one of the strongest duelists with good pylon placement. After all, you still have to deal 300 damage minimum to her, a number that keeps increasing with how long the pylon stays up. Moving on to A tier, Brigitte is one of the few heroes that's gotten better with the blanket support nerfs, and for a few reasons. She's still reaping the benefits of her latest buff, increasing the damage on her whip shot and giving her access to more burst damage, able to kill 200 HP targets much faster. She's also way more important in this new patch because a lot of defensive capabilities have been nerfed, like the cooldown increase on Ana's Biotic Nade and Baptiste's Immortality Field. Brig is perfect for keeping high value supports alive to do their job without fear of getting blasted to pieces by an incoming dive. She's always been great to keep her other support alive and then punish that engage with her melee damage, and it's likely that she'll be more of a consistent pick, especially with how good she is into both Doomfist and Sigma, who are both being played a lot recently. And second in A tier, still consistent and a fan favorite, Ana remains a strong pick despite her nerf. Biotic Grenade having 2 seconds added isn't amazing, but it's not the type of nerf that changes how she plays. When you don't have your Biotic Grenade, either after using it aggressively for an anti-heal or defensively when you get pressured, you already had to wait 10 seconds before the next one, and while 2 seconds added onto that is a lot, you still have your sleep cooldown to defend yourself. Both of her cooldowns are now pretty long, but Ana is best played carefully anyway, not being so exposed as to being engaged all the time. Saving your cooldowns for the best moment is a key concept in playing Overwatch well, so Ana's not going to be hampered too much by this change. Finally, for S tier, Lucio starts us off by being the driving force behind the fastest comps imaginable. When supports get weaker, the more explosive playstyles rise up, to avoid having to peel for your supports all the time instead of focusing on pushing forward. With more people playing more Brawl and Rush comps as a result of the top World Cup teams and even the balance changes making the style more viable, Lucio is the most important to speed his allies into the fight. And he doesn't have to focus on only speed either, with his most recent change increasing the self-healing during his Amp It Up, allowing him to help himself a lot more rather than just only playing for his team. He's an ideal hero with a high skill ceiling, and Sound Barrier is still one of the best ultimates in the game, both defensively and offensively. Being able to choose between the two is really nice, since a lot of heroes are usually optimized for one or the other, being less effective when forced to do the other. Avoiding the nerf wave as well, Lucio is way stronger by comparison, and has a great hand at helping his team focus on the vulnerabilities that have been opened up as a result of the nerfs. Unfortunately though, some of those nerfs haven't been effective, since Baptiste is still insanely powerful and right next on the list. And although the Immortality Field health nerf is pretty substantial, the cooldown is negligible, and the rest of his kit is still maxed out. The health on his Immortality Field is usually not the biggest deal in big team fights, where he's best at using his AoE healing and Immo Field to keep his allies up and save them, because when it goes up, it usually gets lasered down quickly if it's in line of sight of enemies. The saving part is what really matters. This health change will matter a lot more for individual duels, like with Tracer and Genji, who can kill it a lot faster and quickly move on to the map himself. Just like with Iliari, his duelist potential is definitely worse, but he's still one of the stronger heroes regardless. It says a lot about the hero when he can receive this many nerfs and still be top tier, but at this point he might just be a mainstay strong hero that can only really be knocked out of the meta by being nerfed to the ground or stuck in a dive meta that deletes him with high damage and high speed. But luckily, there's a new top dog, since Kiriko is the best off after the changes, receiving what can barely be considered a nerf of a 1 second increase to her Suzu cooldown. With faster compositions comes the need for more aggressive supports, and Kiriko is ideal for playing solo angles and actively participating in the push. She's also taken the title of the best duelist now that Iliari's pylon has been totally wrecked, and with her kit as good as ever, she's ideal for solo carrying and helping out your team. She's still a really high skill hero that's a bit difficult to get into, but with a strong ultimate and high damage and healing potential, there's a lot of different ways to play her, so you can always play her for your own strengths. She's never truly fallen out of the top tiers since her release, so it can be pretty confidently said that she's a more viable option for when Baptiste starts feeling the pain of a weaker Immortality Field and the mounting pressure of an entire 5-man squadron jumping on him. That's it for the support tier list for the mid-season patch of Season 7. Look out for more on this channel as the new changes start to really switch things up, and I'll see you next time. You should look in the description below for a GameLeap membership. There's tons of resources and tools to help you grind and rise up in rank, no matter what role you are or what hero you specialize in. I'll be looking over what makes a character good and how you can get value out of them in the tier list. So if you're interested in improving further, check out that link.